All right, man, peace. So I did a video a while back on lobsters and why brothers are not supposed to be eating lobsters because they are crustaceans. Not only because they're forbidden to be eaten in Leviticus the 11th chapter. You know, whenever a certain food is forbidden to be eaten in the scriptures, there's a reason behind it. And a lot of people do not understand that. The lobster is what's known as a sea scavenger, meaning its job is to eat garbage. Its job is to eat decaying matter. Lobsters, crabs, what are called crustaceans, shrimps, things of that nature. You're not supposed to eat that because they eat garbage. They are nature's garbage collectors underwater. Just like on land, you have rats and pigs. You're not supposed to eat those creatures because their job is to eat garbage. Also, you're not supposed to eat things like clams, oysters, mussels, creatures that are classified as mollusks, right? MOLLUSKS. So they had a nice little feature on the CBS Morning News on oysters. I'm going to let them talk about it. And of course, I'm going to chime in.
Aw, shucks is one possible response to the offer of a serving of oysters. Longtime fans love them, of course, but oyster novices aren't so sure. With Faith Saley, we're off on an oyster adventure.
Blue Points, Beaver Tail, Conway Cup, Putty Hunk, Bob, the Squeedy.
Ask Chef Sandy Ingber what's on the menu at the Grand Central Oyster Bar in New York City.
Look at that nasty shit. Now, who would want to eat that? Damn oyster on a half shell. It looked like a serving of snot. That stuff looks nasty. I've never eaten oysters, by the way. There's certain things that I did used to eat before I came into the knowledge of things that I shouldn't eat and why I shouldn't eat them. And as I mentioned previously, or I believe I mentioned it, I used to love to eat shrimp all the time in my younger days. And then I developed an allergy to it, not understanding that shrimps and crustaceans by nature are going to carry allergens as well as oysters and mollusks because they take in the dirt of the ocean. They take in the pollutants of the ocean. That's their job.
City, and you may be there for a while.
Royal Miyagi, Riptide, Saddle Rock, Summerside, Sunset Beach.
It wasn't always this way.
I started in 1990, and for about the first 7 or 8 years, it was very difficult to buy a lot of different varieties of oysters. There just weren't any around.
In case you didn't know, we are in something of an oyster renaissance. Walk into a restaurant like Brooklyn's Maison Premier, and you can find oysters from hundreds of different places across the country and beyond.
Well, I'm not surprised at that. It has become in vogue to eat mollusks. Going back to antiquity, it was always big across the world, And once again, anybody who's familiar with the scriptures knows that the Bible really teaches you to be disparate from everybody else. The eating of crustaceans and mollusks was something that was very in vogue, particularly in ancient Rome, spread to parts of Britain, so on and so forth. But it didn't really become big in America until the early 1900s, late 1800s. A lot like the crustacean. Kind of coincided with the overall rise of the Caucasian. Not to digress, but the Caucasian really did not rise to be the chief nation on the earth until the mid 1800s officially. Okay, but that's another story for another day. But no, brothers should stay away from those mollusks. And as I've stated previously, it's really not in the so-called black man's nature to eat a lot of those foods, but he gets dragged to these seafood restaurants oftentimes by his woman. Keep it with fish and scales, brothers, please. Those foods, mollusks and crustaceans, they carry nothing but pollutants. All right. The job of the crustacean is to be a garbage disposal system. The job of the mollusk is to filter out the ocean. All right. That's what it was created to do, to filter out the ocean.
Now, if you think all this oyster slurping is nothing but a fad, consider these thoughts from Rowan Jacobson, author of The Essential Oyster.
When you pick up an oyster, you're kind of reliving this very early experience of humanity, which is eating a raw animal live out of its shell.
Yeah, in other words, you're a damn savage. That's what that amounts to. Don't even know what you're eating or why you're eating it.
An oyster is live up to the moment you shuck it, and after you shuck it, it's unclear how dead it is, right? So you're doing something that is definitely not a part of normal, civilized life.
Didn't I just say that you a savage to eat that shit? He's saying it. Listen to the man.
And there's an intensity to that experience. It's just like...
Yeah, sound like a cannibal. Sound like something that a cannibal would say. There's an intensity to eating something that's raw and still alive.
It's like one-on-one, you and the oyster. And usually you win, but occasionally the oyster wins, and you never know, right? And so it really is a rush, like an adrenaline boost when you eat an oyster.
Now, didn't I tell you that oyster eating and eating of mollusks was very, very big in antiquity in Japan? I would bet money that this man here is Japanese. Everything that is created for a purpose. As I already stated, the oyster's job is to sift out the ocean. It acts as a filter. It's like when you go and you wash your dishes. When you're finished washing your dishes, you look in the drainer and you have little bits of food and nastiness in there. You clean out your filter. You don't eat that food. Right? When you eat an oyster or a clam, that's like eating out the food, the little bits of food that's in your drainer after you finish washing your dishes. You're not supposed to eat that shit. The job of the oyster is it flushes out the water through its gills, and that propels something called plankton. I'm into stuff like that, but brothers are not familiar with plankton. Look it up. Plankton is what whales. Let me specify. Certain type of whales known as baleen whales, like blue whales, things of that nature. That's what they eat. So the oyster is a very essential part of the ocean's ecosystem. What oysters do, it allows water vegetation to grow because they help to produce what's known as chlorophyll. All right, you guys remember maybe when you were in high school biology, chlorophyll is what makes plants green.
You want to hop aboard?
And as more and more Americans experience that rush, oystermen and women can't keep up with demand, and prices are higher than ever. But today's story of the North American oyster doesn't begin in fancy restaurants or in the depths of the oceans, but here, where the water meets the land, at America's oyster farms.
I'm looking at a farm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sequoia Farm. There's the buoys out here. The yellow buoys are kind of the corner markers of the farm.
Skip Bennett has been raising oysters in the brackish waters of Duxbury Bay across from Massachusetts' Cape Cod for 20 years, steadily adding new farms to keep up with demand.
Since 1995, how much has your business grown?
It's grown probably on average about 40% annually.
He and his team raise the oysters in their hatchery, then move them to several different farms in the bay and nearby creek, because it turns out with oysters, not unlike wine, geography matters.
Now, are the oysters from your new farm right here going to taste different than the oysters from your original?
They do. We're already starting to, taste the oysters, and they've been out here for a couple of months, and they taste quite different. So
How?
It really has to do with the location, and in oyster farming, it's the salinity and the type of plankton or food that's in the water.
Exactly, the plankton. It's heavily dependent on the part of the ocean that it's in. It's like anything else. If you were to hunt a wild animal, the animal's going to taste different depending on what part of the forest that you catch it in, or what part of the country that you catch it in, because it's going to change what it eats and what it ingests. Oysters, literally, they have to filter out the water in order to live. The larvae that they create to make new oysters is what crabs and lobsters feed on. So once again, the oyster is an essential part of the ocean ecosystem. You're not supposed to be eating that. All right. They also form reefs, that help with the ocean tide and waves and things like that. That's another thing. Like the coral reefs, very, very important part of the ocean ecosystem, man. Right now the coral reefs are undergoing something called what's the term that they use? I believe it's coral bleaching. and it's due to the use of the suntan lotion that certain people are using. I mean, we know the people who mostly use suntan lotion. Is an ingredient in it called oxybenzone, I believe it is. You brothers can look it up. It's oxybenzone, and it's causing a lot of the coral reefs to bleach. Why are coral reefs so important? Because they house a lot of mollusks like oysters and things of that nature that provide food for and hiding places and spawning grounds for fish. And they also protect the seashore from heavy tidal waves. So everything in the ocean works in tandem. Point being is this: only thing you're supposed to be eating out of there is fish with fins and scales. Okay, that's it.
The chemistry of the water.
Now get this. Oyster farmers never have to feed their livestock. These bivalves consume algae and plankton. They're, in effect, tiny water filters. And so good at it that these oysters can turn murky water clear.
Now, when they say murky water, what's that mean? Polluted water. So the job of the oyster is to literally take in all the foulness of the ocean. That's their function. If they don't do it, they die. So they were literally created to do that. It's like you see the movie The Green Mile with Michael Clark Duncan. He could take out illnesses from other people and take it into himself. That's the job of the oyster.
Incredibly, a single oyster can filter 20 to 50 gallons of water a day.
That's what creatures created by the Most High can do. When they're literally created to do something, that's what they can do. When you study animals like the honeybee or the oyster, it's amazing the things that creatures created by the Most High, what they can do.
The greenest critter in the ocean. It's almost miraculous. You just put little baby ones in the water, wait 2 years, you take out big ones, good to go.
I mean, they seem like they should be the food of the future.
Now look at this dumb broad. She just finished saying that oysters clean out murky water, and now she's going to claim that they should be the food of the future. That's like saying that the toilet bowl should be the plate of the future. Would you want to eat your food out of a toilet bowl even if it had just been cleaned? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and you're not the first person to say that. A lot of people are looking at oysters and clams and mussels as a really potentially huge source of food for the future.
And you might be surprised to learn that we wouldn't even have this bounty of bivalves were it not for the Clean Water Act of 1972.
The waters in the Northwest, particularly Puget Sound area, are quite a bit cleaner than when I grew up. There was a pulp mill that was still functioning when I was born in the mid-50s. It functioned for 30 years, and basically the waters here were a dead zone. There wasn't much that grew here.
Bill Taylor's family has been raising oysters around Shelton, Washington since the 19th century. Today, just across the bay from the town's closed pulp mill, oystermen work at low tide to harvest Kumamoto oysters, a species native to Japan.
We sell...
Once again, like I stated, oysters and oyster eating and mollusk eating has been huge in the Far East, particularly Japan, since antiquity. Okay? And let me say this. The vast majority, oysters are very dangerous to eat, man. The vast majority of people who suffer from seafood illnesses is from eating them damn oysters, man. You can get a disease called is it fibrosis or vibriosis from eating oysters. That's why they say you're not supposed to eat oysters in months that don't end in R. So like all the summer months, you're not supposed to eat oysters. You're really not supposed to eat them shits at all. But even amongst the people who eat them, they tell you that.
35 million oysters live each year.
That's a lot of oysters. And this is probably the right time to confess that until shooting this story, your correspondent had never tasted a single one.
So why are you promoting it for? All right, that means that you know that you're on some bullshit. Eating some damn oyster. Why don't you spread that man ass cheeks and just lick out whatever sediment is in there, since that's what you ended up doing. Your nasty ass.
How would you turn someone who's never wants to try an oyster into someone who wants to try one?
Well, as long as they're willing to just give it a try, then it's, you talk to them about the flavor.
Sound like a drug dealer. Just try it once.
And to me, it's kind of like the smell of the beach. So if you've ever been at the beach for the whole day, and especially in the afternoon when it starts to cool down, the beach smells really sweet and kind of salty, and you can smell the air.
I came and I smelled the air and tasted my first oyster.
And then we're going straight down the hatch.
Only for you, I'm telling you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ah, wait, this way, right? Okay. And I take all the liquid and everything all at once.
Look at that. Look, if your natural inclination is to be disgusted before you even eat something, it's probably because you're not supposed to eat it. You know, like I watched this show, Bizarre Foods, with this nut job Andrew Zimmern. That motherfucker be eating stuff. Yo, he must have a stomach like a trash compactor, man. You're not supposed to eat stuff like that.
All at once? Okay.
And then it's raw too. You know how much bacteria is in these creatures? Their job is to take in bacteria from the ocean.
Okay. It tastes like the ocean.
Yeah,
I didn't chew it. I'm sorry.
that's all right.
Baby.
What does that even mean? It tastes like the ocean. You got shark shit and then all type of stuff floating in the ocean. It tastes like the ocean. What does that even mean?
All right.
Baby steps.
Your baby steps, yeah. We're going to work you into this.
If you got to take baby steps, it's not meant for you. But anyway, I just wanted to make this little feature because I covered something along these lines before with lobster. A lot of cats go out there and they just try a lot of these things and they don't know why they're trying them and they don't know why they shouldn't be eating them. Stay away from foods like this. They have, there's a purpose behind every creature that is created. The purpose of the oyster is to filter out the ocean, not to be ingested, not to be eaten. Okay? Oysters are intrinsically linked to the coral reefs, which also are extremely important. They're extremely essential to the production of and the filtering of the ocean, as I've already stated. Also, the production of plankton, or what they call phytoplankton or algae, which is an organism, like a microorganism that's eaten by whales and other organisms in the ocean. And they're all an essential part of the ecosystem. They provide spawning grounds. They provide food for the crustaceans. Everything is essential and has an interdependence. And the only thing that man is supposed to be eating out of the oceans are fish with fins and scales. That's it. But anyway, peace.